Mohamed Salah is out for a month, Erling Haaland is back in training for Manchester City, and the best captaincy options for game week 22 are all topics we're going to be discussing in today's preview video. Before we start today's video, I just want to say that we're trying to hit 5,000 subscribers by the end of the season. If we could do that, it would be absolutely amazing. So if you do enjoy any of the content that you see on the channel, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I thought to start off today's video, we would talk about obviously the big talking point that is Mohamed Salah's injury. Limped off for a game for Egypt at half time. It looked, like it was only going to be 1 to potentially 2 games. It's now come out from Mohamed Salah's agent and kind of Liverpool as well that it is potentially looking a little bit more likely for kind of 21 to 28 days is kind of what's being quoted. There's obviously talks that he potentially could go back for the AFCON final if Egypt do make it. They did progress out of the group yesterday, drawing with Cape Verde, but because of Ghana's last minute draw, they've obviously fell into that third position. Egypt have gone through in second place with 3 points. So they are going to be progressing to the next round. So there's still the potential that they could reach the final. That is still a very big possibility. And Mohamed Salah has gone back to England, gone back to Liverpool, as he believes and his agent believes that this is probably the best option for his recovery and the only way that he's potentially going to make that final. Now, obviously, if he does make that final, it probably means the first game in game week 25 he's probably not going to be back for, which would be a real shame, probably putting him towards maybe game week 26 more likely for a return for Mohamed Salah. Now, obviously, with this injury as well, with them suggesting it's a little bit more serious than they thought, he also could just not go back to AFCON if, Egypt don't progress or the injury doesn't kind of go in the way that they want it to do. This potentially could mean that, if Liverpool do get that double in game week 25 that we have been talking about so much, obviously if they do progress to the Carabao Cup final, it probably means Salah's not going to be available realistically. If it's 28 days, he will miss that first game in the double game week, potentially even missing the second one. So I think if you were a Salah owner, I probably would be looking to sell. Obviously, we're going to get another update from Jurgen Klopp before the deadline about kind of Salah's kind of injury and what position that he's going to be in and potentially how long he is going to be out for. But I think potentially Salah might be a player I'm looking to sell in my own team. Obviously, game week 25, we're still waiting for that double to be confirmed. I think that potentially could be confirmed before the deadline. But realistically, if he's not going to be available for that one, and they obviously get the double, then it means Liverpool as well will blank in game week 26 if they do progress to the Carabao Cup final. So it just seems a little bit silly to be holding Mohamed Salah. Obviously going to be taking up a lot of budget. He'll miss game week 22, game week 23, game week 24, game week 25, which could be a double, and then obviously blanking in game week 26, like I said, if Liverpool do progress to the Carabao Cup final. So for me personally, at the current time of recording, if Liverpool do progress, I think I am going to sell Mohamed Salah. Not maybe this week, maybe the week after, get a little bit more information, try and feed out what position he's in and what position Egypt are in at AFCON as well. But I think with the emergence of KDB, obviously City having that double game week confirmed as well, I think a lot of people are going to make that easy switch from Mohamed Salah to KDB. It's something I've thought about myself, and I definitely don't think it's a bad idea. So let me know what your current plans are if you're still holding Salah. But for me at the moment, I do personally believe he is a sell. From one injured player to another, obviously we were going to have to talk about the big man. It is Erling Haaland. As you can see on screen, we do have 2 tweets from City Extra, a very reliable source at gaining Manchester City information. Now, I wanted to put these 2 tweets up because obviously people saw the first one and photos in today's training session as well. He's been out, he's been on the grass, he's been training with the first team. Great stuff. That's pretty encouraging. But then at the same time, that second tweet is suggesting that Manchester City are going to be quite steady with Erling Haaland's rehabilitation and that he's unlikely to feature in the Tottenham game. So that is a little bit of a concern. Obviously, the Tottenham game is at the weekend, obviously playing in the FA Cup. Then game week 22, the deadline is on Tuesday. Manchester City do play on the Wednesday. So you do feel like maybe if he doesn't play that game, is it worth potentially bringing him back in? I think for a lot of people as well, is whether or not we do captain him this game week as well, because Burnley at home is an absolutely terrific fixture. We will come on to talk about captaincy options a little bit later as well, and Haaland will be included in that section. So I don't want to kind of talk about it too much here, but I just wanted to give my initial thoughts on kind of this injury. I think it's a lot more positive than the first time we saw him training. Obviously that was quite a lot of individual training. It looks like he potentially suffered a setback as well, but with City and kind of all the news and pictures coming out and Haaland posting as well, them doing that back-to-back days, he's back with the first team as well. Maybe he'll be on the bench as well for the FA Cup. Obviously that game will take place before the deadline as well, so we will get to see what condition potentially Erling Haaland is in. You feel if he makes the bench and potentially comes off, probably a very safe pick to go for bringing him in for game week 22. If he doesn't feature in the squad at all, then I do think potential further questions do need to be asked. I don't imagine we'll get a Pep Guardiola press conference ahead of the deadline, so we would be relying on City kind of team leaks, but we have some very good, reliable kind of people in the FPL community who can get that information. So definitely something to consider with Erling Haaland. My current thoughts are, if he's training and if he's on the bench at least for that Spurs game, he is probably going to come back into my team, as I imagine he will for a lot of people. Obviously going to have that double in game week 25 as well. If he is able to get himself fully fit, obviously there's quite a quick turnaround from game week 22 to game week 23, so we might see reduced minutes, maybe a little bit of rotation as well in there. But I think if he can get himself fit and available and firing for those games, he's obviously going to be a prime candidate for triple captain in game week 25. But I just wanted to outline kind of some of the news. I've seen that some people have obviously been retweeting that he's back in training, but I think that bottom quote does need a little bit kind of more food for thought, if you like. You know, that he potentially could miss out on the FA Cup game, and with City potentially taking it steady and such a tight turnaround from game week 22 to game week 23 and the FA Cup game into game week 22 as well, we potentially could see Erling Haaland start on the bench for game week 22 maybe, or be benched for game week 23 if they are looking to potentially kind of steady him back into kind of football and ease his rehabilitation process. But let me know what you think about Erling Haaland. What are your plans? Maybe you already own him, and what's your plans? Are you going to play him this week? Are you going to captain him? Let me know in the comments and we'll see if we can try and figure out a solution. Moving on to our next section, I thought we'd talk about Kieran Trippier and his potential move to Newcastle United and the ramifications that could have for his owners, and potentially an avenue or an opening, if you like, for Timo Livramento. Now, obviously there is quite strong rumours at the moment that Trippier could be off to Bayern Munich. It could be complete absolute just horseshit and it could never happen, but you do feel with Bayern potentially bringing in more English assets to kind of accommodate Harry Kane, make him feel as welcome as possible and kind of boost his morale. You do feel Kieran Trippier would be a player. He's played abroad as well before, so probably wouldn't be like too homesick as well. And you do feel if Newcastle could get a fee with them kind of struggling with FFP at the moment as well, I think that deal makes sense for all parties involved. Obviously Kieran Trippier as well will continue to play Champions League football for Bayern Munich and probably going to get a bit of a hefty stack as well to go with it. Obviously he's quite a highly owned player and the fixture run after this week is quite nice for Newcastle United. They've got Luton, Nottingham Forest, Bournemouth, no blank in game week 26, and there is the potential that Newcastle might not blank in game week 29 either. So obviously owning Newcastle assets, probably not the worst thing in the world. Kieran Trippier as well, his stock, you know, he is quite highly owned within the game as well, even though he hasn't been performing at the same levels that he did last season or arguably even earlier parts of this season. So it does make sense why I think some people, potentially if you've got no other kind of issues to potentially maybe worry about, maybe you've not got Salah, maybe you've not got Haaland, or you've already got him in, then maybe Kieran Trippier out could be a potential transfer or just something to potentially keep in mind. And the man on the left, Timo Livramento, could offer himself up as a fantastic option to go for from Newcastle. Obviously we're always on the lookout for cheap attacking defenders. When he has played this season, you know, he's looked pretty good. He would be the first choice right back for Newcastle United. They obviously spent a lot of money on him in the summer, rate him very highly. That was always the plan, that he was potentially, you know, always going to outperform Kieran Trippier at parts of this season and next season and start to kind of establish himself as the first team right back. But for 4.3 million, some definite positive fixtures coming up. No blank in game week 26 as well. a good fixture in game week 25. I think Timo Livramento, if Kieran Trippier goes, probably will be quite high on a lot of people's shopping lists, even towards maybe the game week 30 wildcard as well, if you are looking down that avenue, or potentially thinking about your wildcard as well. Timo Livramento could be an absolutely stellar option to go for at a rock bottom price with pretty good attacking data. We've seen him when he gets a run of games as well for Southampton a few seasons ago. The damage and the impact he had in the FPL community was absolutely immense. So just something I think that you potentially should be aware of if Kieran Trippier does leave. There is a ready-made replacement at Newcastle United who can fill in those boots. Probably the attacking returns aren't going to be as consistent or as good as what Kieran Trippier has been doing for the past few seasons in the Premier League, but I thought it was just worth kind of outlining. There is a 4.3 million defender with potential good fixtures, playing for a top team as well. He is going to get plenty of attacking opportunities, so I just wanted to outline that one for you guys in today's video. And rounding off today's video, I thought we would talk about potential captaincy options. Obviously, there is a long way to go till game week 22. I'm currently recording this on the Tuesday evening. Now, obviously, there are going to be certain things that will change, potential injuries in League Cup or in FA Cup games over the weekend, certain players potentially returning, but I thought I'd just outline at the moment my current thoughts on captaincy and which way I would be leaning if I owned any of these players. We're going to start off with Richarlison. Now, the reason I've included him in here is arguably looking at some of the fixtures this week. There aren't too many good ones. Obviously, Saka against Nottingham Forest probably would be a fixture you'd like to go for, but realistically, he's only picked up one attacking return in his past 5 games, so probably not too much. Aston Villa are playing Newcastle, so probably rules out Watkins. You know, Sheffield United have got Crystal Palace. They're off the back of a disappointing result against Arsenal, and the pressure is on Roy at the moment as well, so I don't think any of their assets really stand out. The only teams that stand out to me with potential captaincy options are Manchester City with that Burnley at home fixture, and then Spurs at home against Brentford. Now, Richarlison has been the goal scorer for Spurs over the past few weeks. He's picked up 4 goals in his past 5 games, and as you can see, this is his per 90 data so far this season, and it's pretty good, to be honest. If you look at the expected points per 90, well, not even the expected points per 90. The average points per 90 that he's picking up is the second best on this list. And it's, you know, it's not close to Erling Haaland, but it's at least respectable. Obviously, we're considering the likes of Foden and Alvarez. And, you know, he's outperforming both these guys. 7 million, 11.6% ownership as well, in super duper good form. My only concern with Richarlison is the fact that he doesn't see out 90 minutes. It's just not happening. And obviously with Werner now there, Kulusevski will be back from his injury. You know, we're going to have Son returning from the Asian Cup in a few weeks' time as well. I do think, you know, Richarlison has got to make the most of his purple patch while he's still slapping in the goals. Maybe this could be the final week. Maybe you give him the armband, but I can't really see him scoring more than 2 goals or 1 goal, to be honest. But points per 90, he's pretty good. The second best on this list. And arguably, you know, Spurs do have the second best fixture. That was Brentford's first win in like 6 games as well. So they are potentially starting to recover maybe from that dip. But arguably, if you look at the form table, it's still only 1 win in the last 6 Premier League games. Now, for me, the easy captain, if he is fit and available, is Erling Haaland. Like I said in the last section, we are still waiting to find out whether or not he will be fit and available for game week 22. He is back in that first team training, and look at the data, man. This is his per 90 data. Even so, he's not having a good season, but look at this. 0.97 goals per 90, nearly a goal a game, is absolutely ridiculous. Expected goal involvement, 1.25, so you at least guarantee he's going to create at least a goal a game, or, you know, get an opportunity for a goal a game. Like, is absolutely ridiculous. And as you can see, monster points that he's averaging per 90 as well. And this, realistically, if you do take the gamble and bring Haaland back in, maybe it's not 100% sure, maybe you've already got him and fancy just giving him the armband for this week, I think this could potentially be a week where we're actually going to get some positive returns out of Haaland, because he's not going to be ridiculously high owned. Still, I imagine his EO is going to be close to 100, but there might still be a little smidge of points that you potentially could get out of him. So, you know, something to potentially consider there. But I do think wait for any kind of injury news before captaining Haaland, in my personal opinion. Now, Phil Foden, I think for me, again, it's all down to this City fixture. I think realistically, if you've got a City player, that's probably the avenue to go down for this game week. Foden, for me, I don't think he's going to warrant the captaincy material for me. Just not quite it. I think as a good player to have in your team, yes. Would I give him the armband? I don't think I would be as confident. Potentially, I'm leaning a little bit more if I had Richarlison to give it him over Foden. Moving on to Alvarez. Again, very similar situation. What's his role going to be if Haaland is back? If buts and maybes that we can't currently answer at the moment. Again, I wouldn't feel too confident giving him the armband. If you look at the data that he's putting up, points per 90, it's just not really good enough for me, to be honest, to warrant the captaincy armband. I know he's got a really good fixture, but I could only realistically see him potentially seeing one goal. And with KDB back, he has lost some of his free kicks. If Haaland's back as well, you probably imagine he's taking penalties. So, you know, it's just one of those. I think it's a wait and see with Alvarez, but for me, again, personally, probably not. Now, KDB does offer himself up as an interesting option. Obviously, there have been quotes coming around about his potential injury. Well, not his injury, but his recovery time. He says, like, potentially can't see out a full 90 minutes, 60, 70 minutes max at the moment, which is a little bit concerned if you are going to give someone like that the armband. My only caveat to that is, we saw what he could do in 21 minutes. What could he do in 60 to 70 minutes? He is a breathtaking footballer. Absolutely amazing. Changed that game for Manchester City against Newcastle. And you do feel he could have a very similar response against Burnley as well. Maybe even coming off the bench with the armband. Still potentially could be a very good option if Haaland isn't fully fit and available as well. But I think you do have to err on the caution with that one. But he is so capable of getting those mega scores. It might actually be worth giving him the armband, especially if he gets an okay run. Maybe he plays like 45 minutes in the FA Cup. Maybe we see him like that could be the encouraging sign that we do go for him for the captaincy armband for game week 22. Let me know which way you're thinking of potentially going with your captaincy armband this week. If you've got any other questions as well, do leave them in the comments. And like I said at the top of the video, we are not closing in, but we're trying to hit 5,000 by the end of the season. It would be absolutely immense if we could do that. But thank you very much for watching today, ladies and gentlemen, and good luck this game week.